Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Polity's podcast. We're so happy you're here. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Alex.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Yep.
I love Christmas. It is the season of enforced Christianity, and it's a beautiful thing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything that you're a little bit guilty about believing and thinking at Christmas time, you can just phrase it as being about Christmas, and people buy it. Like in the Church's social teaching, for instance, it's pretty clear that we need to lend money and give gifts, and this characterizes us. And almost every day of the year, it's sort of a drudgery to think about, giving gifts, lending money, being liberal, generous, beneficent, benevolent. But Christmas time comes and everyone just expects it. It's like, what gifts are you giving this year?
Yeah.
What can I give at the end of the year to all these needy people?
Time to be Christian for a season. It'll be fun.
It's true. And everyone just starts singing Christian hymns, all the carols going on. It's like, it's just like Christianity gets a pass for a season. But if you wanted to ever characterize the Catholic social teaching of the church, you could do far worse than to characterize it as Christmas every day of the year.
Yep.
Because I really think it is. It's like that kind of feeling of an effulgence of charity towards all men, that sense of like a brotherhood of man that obligates you to give, and a sense of immense gratitude for the entirety of the year. We all expect that of each other at Christmas, because at the end of the day, we're Christian nations and Christian peoples, however fallen away we are. But when all the pop radio stations change to Christmas music all the time, you can just do it. You can just live the social teaching of the church as a little microcosm. And the goal of New Polity here is to make that experience every day, make it customary. Just the Christmas people, become a Christmas people and an Easter people. I guess we could go too hard on that.
Yeah, we want to be a culture. Eventually, we can do also the Paschal mystery, side of things.
That's the hard part.
I'm glad we still have the Christmas cultural thing,
Yeah, it's been strangely preserved. You can get down on commercialization and Santa Claus, right? Mm-hmm. Many people do. But just think about how wonderful it is that in a nation as commercially corrupt as our own, and as really all the nations of the earth at this moment, one of the side effects of its immense commercialization has been the hallowing of Christmas, probably irrationally in many ways, but it's such an in for evangelization to just say, like, if we're gonna spend billions of dollars making warm, fuzzy movies about families coming together, about people finding the meaning of life, if we're gonna do that and cash in on it, let's just thank God that what we're cashing in on is Christianity.
Yeah.
I think that's marvelous. So if you're not Christian yet, it's just like Christmas every day. Just jump on in. All right. Well, that being said, we've had quite a year.
Mm-hmm. Survived another year.
That's right. It's been
thrived another year.
Sir thrived. Yeah, it's been good. I have a terrible memory. I really do. So I don't remember, for instance, most of my childhood beyond what my sisters tell me happened. Mm-hmm. And similarly, I don't really know what happened. So you have had a little glance over the year.
Oh, yeah.
You have some authority here.
Yeah, we've put out a lot of magazines. That's right. So because we were behind, 5.4 actually came out this year. Yes. And then 6.1, which was on the people. Yep. We had original pieces, original translation of Alberto Methilferi in that piece, or in that magazine, selection from Rocco Buttiglione's book. Yeah. All on the people. Yeah. And then, of course, the 623 AI magazine, huge, which I think single-handedly like our biggest magazine a single magazine. Yeah. And then 6.4 should be out by the time this podcast comes out.
I've been fundraising and calling people and begging them, and they're just the funny people that subscribe to the magazine. One person said, "Don't worry that you're always late, because I am always behind on reading. So by the time that, which is not what we need to hear, right? We need the motivation. We need, just lie to us, guys. Tell us that you get the magazine and then
Drop
read
everything.
the whole thing, and then you're done, eagerly anticipating the next big drop. Because this whole I'm 3 issues behind thing is not motivating our souls to get it out the door. But I will say, Alex, and this is, I think, a lot, I credit you as a managerial force at New Polity. We are closer to being on time than ever in the history of New Polity, besides year 1, when whatever we did was sort of the timeline, right?
Yeah, it was the on time. Mm-hmm.
And so we are crawling up. If we can get the next magazine issue out the door in January.
Yeah, and it's an exciting one. Pretty sure we can say at this point it's on Man and Woman.
Yep.
And in preparation for our conference, 2026, Man, Woman, Tyrant, Slave.
Yes. Yeah, an investigation. Oh man, I'm so excited. We're talking about next year. Last year. But I'm very excited about it. An investigation into the connection between what we think about sexual difference and what we think about political order, ultimately cosmic order. It's going to be marvelous. It's going to be a little controversial. Mm-hmm. The question of whether the current discourse concerning sexual relations is good will come up and will be tackled with grace, charm, and aplomb. So we're very excited about that. But of course, we had a conference this year that we are summarizing.
Yeah, right.
On the people, which was marvelous. I learned so much. So if you haven't come to a New Polity conference yet, do consider it. It's, among many other things, just a chance to realize you're not alone. There are many people that want Christianity with all of its teeth, that want it to transform the world, that are doing really interesting things in their particular towns and localities, applying Catholic social teaching to their businesses, to their families, to their cities, and they all converge on little old Steubenville in May. And you can be a part of that, get to know some of these people. It's awesome. It's a great group.
Yeah, this year we also had the baseball game, which was a lot of fun.
Right. Yes, the inaugural New Polity baseball team.
Yep. Which was, fitting for the topic, the people, our kind of people.
Yes.
We play baseball.
But we're going to keep doing it, man.
Oh, yeah, we should.
I'm not very good at baseball. I learned that about myself, but I was happy to hit the ball. Mm-hmm. You just want to not make a fool of yourself. Sometimes that's all you can ask the good Lord for. Well, one thing that this year I thought was especially obviously consuming in some ways was just the whole AI discussion, the whole AI debate, the podcasts, the magazine itself, and really just obviously you guys listening to the podcast get to some extent the fruits of some thought. Actually, no, you're listening to the podcast. You often get the half-baked, should have waited for the fruit of the thought. And sorry about that. That's a problem of form. But the conversations in between all of the people here locally concerning AI were just so rich. I didn't expect to... it's an odd experience because I'm so grateful to the arrival of AI and AI chatbots as this opportunity to reflect on what it means to be a human being, what it means to create, what it means to prioritize labor according to the Church's social teaching. Those sorts of questions I don't think would have come up otherwise in the profound way they did. So that's been a real 2025 peak.
Yeah. After the Our Kind of People conference, had a friend who told me, you guys need to start looking at AI. This year it's getting it's getting very real. And so middle of the year, we just started talking about it. I made a research presentation to our group, trying to get the conversation going on it. And and then middle of the year, it really felt like this just snowball effect of just tons more money, data centers being built, the state, the Trump administration taking a very pro AI stance and even trying to say, states can't regulate it. and they put out the America AI Action Plan, and so this the tech world of the tech elites, like all of that money just shifted over to AI development, over to making Grok, making ChatGPT, and the release of new models, and then all the conversations started becoming on AI middle of the year.
Yeah, it's a world out there, isn't it? I am saddened for all the folks who are doing really cool research, developing really cool devices, who are somewhat forced to call everything AI because that's where the funding is these days. So speaking with some people who've done some really cool work on X-ray technology, things like that, where for the sake of funding the projects that they want to do, which I think have genuine merit, they have to characterize it as artificial intelligence, when it's not. And in fact, artificial intelligence isn't artificial intelligence. So I'll be very excited if the Christian critique, because Christianity is a critique of the world, if one of the fruits of it might be the distinction, right? To have the ability to develop with the good of LLM technology without this mystique of artificial intelligence being wrapped up in it, like being part of that sword that divides, thing from thing, as opposed to the kind of ambiguous mess that the marketing world presents to us.
The word implies a part to a goal, right? So you make an AI for this, an AI for this, but already the word implies we're going to make the AGI that can do all of it, right? Yeah. And so you've already put it in a framework of ceding over human things over to the artificial intelligence, right? Whereas if it's just developing certain, limited technologies, then you say, well, here's the use case. That was something we talked about early on, is this trying to make this totally can do anything machine. Like ChatGPT is an anything, ask it anything, right? And that already puts it in the framework of not a limited good that it's achieving. The technology. It's trying to be as maximal as possible. What can we replace with it?
Which has such a, limitation is beautiful. It's what really produces beauty. Everyone knows this, right? If you have a game where there's no rules, the game's not fun. If you have an indefinite project, no one wants to be a part of it. When you have limitation of form, we're singing this song, it has these notes, these harmonies work and others don't, then the capacity for genuine human creativity starts to flourish. Whenever there's a sort of indefinite power, it's always opposed to that, right? It's always inspiring us not towards the creation of definite forms, but towards the sort of formlessness of power, where it's like, what do we do? Well, we don't know, but it's going to be great. I one thing I did in 2025 was run for office. I lost, but it was close. But in running for office, and in my custom now, I can say, because custom of losing, I get to talk to a lot of old people, go door to door, knocking, talking to everyone, convincing them that your leadership is a good thing. And what I found just in my little town, I'm sure it's in others, is just the elderly are getting scammed at rates incomprehensible, to the point that multiple people, unprompted, have said they just don't answer their phone at all. So that kind of quintessential elderly technology, right? So how do you know it's your grandma versus your cousin? Your grandma's going to actually give you a call, right? And that's gone now because of the degree of scamming. And I was realizing, obviously, a lot of this has to do with the ability to create really accurate voice simulations of the human voice that are very convincing. And also just the availability of data, period, which is hardly an AI problem. It's just, it is true. And I realized that what's saddening about it is the loss of a vernacular. Maybe I should back up. What I mean is scamming, faking people out, relies on some knowledge of them, right? So you have to be able to act like them in order to fool them. It's the most basic form this takes. And one of the ways we resist liars, thieves, and scammers is by having diverse culture and difference among peoples, right? Because if a people is very distinct, then in order to scam them, you have to do way more work, right? Like there's way more work to become like them so as to convince them that you're one of them, right? So one of the ways is to enter into the difference of a culture. But the other way is to homogenize culture, right? So if it is the case that everyone can kind of speak the same way, if everyone's culture can basically be predicted in advance, if people can become more and more similar, then they also just de facto become more and more available to being scammed because it's easier to do so, right? So I've been thinking about this moment of history that we're in, which is that we have experienced really since the rise of nation states going forward, a homogenization of culture, the loss of diverse languages, the loss of diverse customs, dialects, and that's been the story of modernity, really, into large homogeneous national units. And then when AI comes and gives us the ability to mechanically imitate the voice, right? It seems like it's no accident, I suppose, that it's happening right at the moment when the voice has been most reduced to imitation. It's like you really can sound like anyone. You can produce scripts now that give you a homogeneous sort of language that could be applied anywhere, right? This is a kind of email you could send in Tennessee or Canada or anywhere in the English-speaking world. And yeah, I just think that it's a saddening aspect, but it's also inspiring in that I think is a call to or just a way to see the importance of the Catholic vision, which is diversity in unity, right? So not the production of large homogeneous cultures, but you hate to describe it as a negative, but the production of scam-resistant peoples, right?
Yeah.
I don't just mean the phones, right? That was the part that triggered the thought. It's like, man, these old people are scared to answer their phone because everyone's lying to them. But then, of course, the question is, what kind of world is it that old people are so easily lied to? And the answer is, I think, a homogenized culture that's technocratic in its form. And part of if you follow the logic of the church's teachings, especially if you think about subsidiarity and solidarity, you come out with this vision of the good, of what humanity should be, as thriving but very different cultures of people. Families that are given the freedom to be themselves and not others. And then the resistance to any kind of mass and universalizing culture that doesn't have a true unity, which is only found, I think, in the church. And because of that, I think if you followed the logic of Catholic social teaching, if we were obedient to it, then the end result would be a people who, it would just be very, very different. And so very, very hard to enter into their particular worlds and lie to them. So that's what I got from running for office. Not office.
Well, yeah. And it's also indicative of the kind of presumption with the new technologies of it will just be good. Look, it can do cool voice changing things. It's like, scammers are going to use that on old people. Yeah. Oh, it makes great image generation and whatever. And there's a lot of bad uses of that. Yeah. And you just, in developing the thing, there's also in like reading Sam Altman, which I called him out in my my essay in the AI mag, this, the lack of recognition of any bad effects of the technology you're making. Like, and you can say, well, he's just got to promote the thing, but there's basically a principle of retroactive fixing
Sure.
So we'll introduce the AI thing, and then all the elderly get scammed. Well, maybe we'll try to fix it somehow later.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It was still good enough to make it, even though they're getting scammed now. And you can't blame me for developing the technology and then scammers using it in this type of way. So there's this just belief in humanity's ability to retroactively fix the mistakes that they are creating.
Yeah, it's like it's an anti-paternalistic view of power. So like a father in his use of power doesn't say like, well, it's a free market out there. Let's release things and stuff into the world, see what happens, and then fix it over time. Like you don't get to do that because they're children. And if you screw them up, they'll be screwed up. You don't get to say, hey, yeah, tried some stuff when you were 8 years old. I know it's tough now that you're 14 and you have all these complexes, but that's just part of growth. It's, who could have known that society would work out that way? So now we're going to fix this 14-year-old problem you have. It's like, well, sorry, it doesn't work like that. Because a view of power, like when you have power over others, you utilize it for their good. That's what governs power. You don't utilize it and then say for their good or evil, but ultimately I'm sure we'll fix it and make it good. I mean, this is a little silly to argue for. It's very basic.
Yeah, right.
But I think that also just characterizes the modern notion of power kind of combined with the Christian hope in the goodness of the world. That those two things, they form an odd unity in our consciousness. And I don't think they should. I think they should be actually parsed out, where we think, well, power is not ordained to any particular ends. It is just this unlimited potentiality. And then we also have this vision of providence, right? That all things work to the good. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of combine them in two, in a way that abdicates our own royal and paternal power. Like it abdicates it by saying like, well, we'll just let things happen. So I think it's in some ways it's the inheritance of Christian optimism that it makes it kind of ambiguous, right? Because it's like, yeah, things really do work to the good, but notably in and through those who believe, like for those who believe, not extrinsic to their actual virtue and their decisions, but in and through the church. Like that's just the way it goes. So anyways, I think that there's...
Well, you have to... It's also, I mean, it's the marker in the Old Testament of whether your society is basically just, whether you're caring for the widows and orphans. So you have to look at what are the least powerful, poorest people of our society, and how will this technology impact them, right? And we talked also in the previous podcast on AI about the kind of delusions that are happening with talking with ChatGPT and with other AI assistants, where people are getting into a sycophancy cycle, which has been acknowledged by AI, and they're kind of like mental problems are just exemplified are exacerbated by using the thing. And they have delusions that the thing is conscious. So you have that problem. You have the scammer thing. There are people like, having ChatGPT. Should my kids be able to use ChatGPT and help them, study and figure out things in life and all this stuff? And I'm, all those things are going to be negative.
Yeah, I think the delusions of power and grandeur belong to the thing. You don't have to simply have a proclivity to that yourself. Because I think this is of course a argument that a bat that I keep swinging. We don't need to go into it too much, but it's like there's a temptation with this particular technology to argue that if you're savvy enough, if you're smart enough, if you are knowing enough, then you won't fall prey to the various temptations of it, to view it as conscious, etc. And I think there's a couple of things to say. One is which I think that should really, for the reasons you said, put up sort of the old Christian alarm, namely that if the argument is that those who are poor and weak, and by poor I mean poverty in terms of intelligence as much as in other means, if one cannot utilize them in a state of poverty, if one cannot utilize them well, if one is harmed by them and more likely to be harmed by them because of all the lacks that you have in your life, it doesn't have that kind of mark of Christianity where there's a gradated use of a thing for various where the use of the thing is gradated according to the ability of the person, and that those things can happen at different levels.
You see this most obviously with the data centers. Like the XAI data center in Memphis is in South Memphis. Not a great area, originally from Memphis. But it's just a poor neighborhood, area, and tons of noise pollution and actual pollution, and and the electric bills. The electric bills have skyrocketed for everyone around that area. And this has happened like across the country. There's another place in Texas. It happens with Bitcoin mining as well. So what they're doing is they're going to small towns and going to their city councils and saying, hey, we're going to, bring this big data center to your Midwestern town or wherever. And it just raises everyone's electric bills, causes noise pollution. They work out agreements so they don't have to pay taxes to the municipalities for a long time. And so your small town now is loud because of like server cooling and fans. Your electric bills are high and no money's staying in your town. Yeah. And now they've just set up shop there.
Yep. Come meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I think it's unfortunately true. But that notion that if you're savvy enough, you'll be fine, I think is how do I put it? It's a difficulty, because I actually think what happens is that we just experience different levels of delusion, because I think I'm thinking about chatbots in particular, so I'm making a distinction between that and any other particular use of what we call AI. But the thing is deluding you as a means of its operation, right? So it is designed to appear as someone talking to you, and that's just obvious. It's what it is. So there are reactions to that particular delusion, but it's wrong, I think, to say, well, if you're really savvy, you don't experience that delusion. It's like, no, if you're savvy, then you know that it's a delusion as you are experiencing it. If you're savvy, you have the means and the education and the kind of network of people around you who will stop various bad effects of this delusion from happening to you. But that doesn't mean that somehow the kind of distinguishing mark of good and bad chatbot use is somehow just like not being a dumb person who's easily deluded. I don't think that's the case. And I also think it's one of the unfortunate parts of a society in which there's great inequality, where one of the things that afflicts such societies is that their rich can sin with less consequence. So what I mean is, you can see this in almost every particular sin, that you have like an elite class. It's obvious in terms of like sexual immorality. You have an elite class that's producing media, that's producing film, that lauds sexual immorality. And then you have a consuming class that consumes precisely the media that's created. Now, of course, it's not that simple. There's a lot of back and forth between those, but that's the main of it. The difference is that the ones who are creating this media and lauding the ideology of sexual immorality also have the money to pay for its consequences, right? So they can deal more readily with administering a regime of contraception on themselves, with abortion. They might even be more able to deal with divorce and having two homes and navigating all that. Now, the people who are largely the consumers and not creators of this media, the people who are largely receiving the ideology and not the ones, academically promoting it per se, are usually the ones that don't have the power to deal with the consequences of sin, of that particular sin, right? So it's like, well, they're the people who probably it will not be as easy to have a seamless regime of contraception, and they will end up with out of wedlock pregnancies and all the difficulties therein. And they won't be able to just easily divorce and have two houses and visitations and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's like paradigmatic. And I just think a similar thing happens whenever we introduce like wickedness into society, that one of the things that makes wickedness wicked is that it's unequally distributed in terms of its bad effects. It's like, you have, and in this case, I think you have the wickedness of talking to people who aren't real and the fakeness of that. But then you have a obvious distinction between the people for who are consuming that and getting into and don't have the means and the customs and the people around them to resist that becoming something obviously harmful, right? So people who are developing addictions that way, people who are, like you say, exasperating mental illness, people who are vulnerable to scams, people who are, like all of those things, unfortunately afflict those who also just have less generally.
Totally.
And I think that's what's such a...
It makes me think about Andrew Willard-Jones's essay, The Humane and Technocratic in the AI magazine, and particularly the point of every new technology is presented to the younger generation as nature itself. Sure. So it's just part of the world, which is part of how people define like Gen Z. Apparently I'm on the front half of the Gen Z. We're the first generation to grow up basically with iPhones. Yeah, and then eventually the coming of social media and that's just the world we grew up in. And so there's not a world prior that you remember. So if there's a world prior that functioned and you functioned in it, and then the iPhone came and you're like, oh, okay, cool. It can do this additional thing. Yeah. But my world it's not natural to my world. It's something added to my world.
Yeah, it's an augmentation. And you can always remember the world that it augments.
Yes, exactly. And so, but now for my generation, that was just part of our world. Sure. For the younger Gen Alpha, like TikTok is part of their world, right? Like the short form video that you doom scroll, part of the world. Instagram, part of the world. All of the other social media apparatus. And AI chatbots are part of the world. Yeah. We look at these things and we say, well, I didn't use them previously. Maybe they have some use cases. But for someone who just takes it as nature as such, it shapes their world in a more severe way. Yeah. And you can think also with tech developers, I think there's something natural to when you develop the AI and you kind of know the underlying code and the systems to some degree, not that you know the whole thing. You can also relativize it as talking to a machine. But again, for people who don't know any of that, it just appears as magic, right? It appears as magical words on the screen that answer my question. Yeah. Just like the iPhone appears as kind of magical. How does it all work? I don't know. Yeah. The technology, when you don't know it, has this kind of this magical effect to other people. And so you have to look at what is the world that's being built for the generation that comes after, taking this as part of reality, as nature itself. That's
very wise. Youth is a poverty, right? Like and that's what's great about it, but it's a state of great receptivity. And there's a reason why the papacy, especially in the last 100 years, has had an emphasis on on the youth as an object of evangelization, because I think they are the ones who receive the world we build as the world, and not as some just contingent thing that we could do otherwise. Now, we shouldn't be foolish about that. Obviously, the beauty of humanity and of humanity by the grace of God is the ability to mature and to grow wise and to see the world as being not just a given, but something that is open and indeed cries out for us to work upon it and to perfect it. That's true even of people like you who grew up with the iPhone, right? Like you can decide to not use it, right? That's what I'm trying to affirm. But that question of what kind of world are we building, I think needs to be understood as what kind of world are we giving to people for whom it's going to appear as natural.
Yes.
And I think that one of the difficulties we have with, or that I think about a lot with chatbots, is that I think that the way that, because often an argument that I receive against the sort of arguments I make is that it is sufficient to know that a thing is just a machine in order to justify acting towards it as if it were a person. I don't buy that, but perhaps one of the things to think about is, well, for children, right, when we are raising them up into it, that knowledge that it's just a machine, I think, is distinct, because they don't have the knowledge of the thing not existing previously and then being invented, and then it as an actual event in their past being presented to them as, here, use this thing on your computer. It's just a machine, but look at the cool thing it can do. They don't have that. They have the presence of the thing is already there. And so you might just say the depth of the delusion is greater, but I think that's just true of any kind of offering we give to children, is that one of the things that it will do is appear as the natural world.
Totally. I'm thinking about Pope Leo gave an address to like young people in the United States or somewhere, and he talked about don't use AI for your studies. Right. He said real study is a flourishing of the human person that can't be done through the machine, but it has to be taught person to person and so on. But what the technology, so there's kind of like two steps. The technology, once it's socially adopted by the world, becomes nature for the younger generation, and then increases, and then we can make the critique that this actually isn't good, having it take over so many things in our world, and appear as nature to the younger generation. But then it includes additional moral oughts, like the church is then trying to say, like, don't use this for education. Don't, in addition, like what you're arguing here, it's now that AI has taken over so much of our way of communicating, our social world, now we have to ask the moral question. But there's two arguments there. Is this good for the world? And then also, what do we do with it now that it's here, right? And I think that's where your argument on conversation is just so important, because it's like, we have to admit, yeah, people are using this, right?
Yeah, it's true. I'm excited. I've got a whole bunch of other people who are coming in to talk about conversation and debate about chatbots. I am afraid, folks, that it will be a never-ending concern of mine. Yeah. But you can be confident. I've talked with a lot of our wonderful subscribers, and a fair few of them have said something to the effect of, yeah, totally on the AI stuff. Seems kind of obvious. Are you guys ever going to get back to talking about the stock market or like
stock market? Or,
hey, yeah, that seems right. Yeah, no problems there. the gender though, are we done? I'm sorry. I can only think about one thing at a time. That's what I realize.
Totally.
We have these cycles with New Polity of thought and then publication. Now, obviously, it's best not to do both at the same time, which is why podcasts should not be long. But the cycle of thinking about AI and then publishing AI inevitably gets us to a point where we all know naturally we need to start thinking again. Mm-hmm. And that is happening with like economics and Catholic social teaching, where we're thinking about that based on other things that we've thought of previously and published about, and now it's time for publication again.
Right.
Which is why I'm very excited that in looking forward to the next year, we're going to be doing a few things. So I'll be doing a podcast on the matriarchs of the Old Testament, specifically a question of the theology of sexual difference, but with a biblical foundation, let's say, and what all that has to do with tyranny. I'm excited about that. And then you're going to be doing some Catholic social teaching. It's hard.
Going to be doing a lot of it.
I say going to be as if you're not.
Oh yeah, we're
up to your neck.
We're deep in the writing. Yeah. We're really working on the power, common good, and hierarchy section to make it, which is pretty much the core of the book right now.
For those who don't know, Alex is talking about a book that is being published by Word on Fire in partnership with New Polity, and is, what do you call it? Headlined? That's like a musical term, by Andrew Willard-Jones. Or co-published. What are we saying?
Andrew and I are co-authoring it.
Just co-authoring this one. Yeah. Co-publishing is the printing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, co-authored by you and Dr. Jones, Catholic social teaching.
Yeah. Say a prayer for us in our writing. We have a large amount to do ahead of us, but I think it's going to be very fruitful. We're working on the power, common good, and hierarchy section and making it really good for the later topics: justice, subsidiarity, temporal and spiritual powers. It's when you go back to kind of the big categories, you realize how difficult it is to summarize. You can, like, all right, let's really summarize power. Let's really summarize the common good. But we're getting closer.
And Christianity is a way of life. It's not it is not just a bunch of propositions. So the moment that you have to summarize, well, what does the church tell us to do? What you're talking about is how to live transformed by Christ. Mm-hmm. There's no way that you're going to just look at power and say, how is the very notion of power transformed by our relationship with Christ, and end up with an easy writing task. So I commend you.
Oh, thanks.
It's not the only book we're doing, though. This year we're happy to be publishing D.L. Schindler's, late D.L. Schindler, his book, America and the Mystery of Christ and the Church, edited by Reuben Slife and introduced by the same. One that was featured to some extent in our recent magazine, 6.4, and which just asked the question of what does America mean to Jesus, which is maybe a silly way of putting it, but it's I think the most important question when we ask ourselves about what does it mean to be American? Are we a people? Are we a good people? Are we were we founded right? Things that often concern us. The most important question is, what is God doing? What is God doing with America?
Yeah.
And I don't know of any other theologian who took that question seriously, and not just as an opportunity to wave the flag and say America's just great.
As a long part of his career, and really the courage to, in the 80s and 90s, to say, hey, I think that there is something deeply wrong with liberalism in our current political order in the 80s and 90s, right? Like this is he was, blazing the path far before it was Deneen's why liberalism failed. I mean, far before Trump and the kind of like movement past liberalism and everyone being post-liberal, he was already seeing all the cracks in the foundation in a time in which it was very unfashionable to point those out.
Oh yeah, D.L. Schindler was met with largely silence and disbelief.
Right.
Like, how could you say this? Everyone knows we're great. And I think that's understandable. And I do think it's the time to present, it's the moment to present D.L. Schindler's arguments once again. Perhaps when they were published, there was a great difficulty in, when they were all first published, it was a great difficulty in seeing those cracks you mentioned, because everything was going pretty well. You know, the liberal order was thriving. Neoliberalism was working well here and overseas. We were all getting the money from it. There was a sense of the moral Christian consensus holding.
Yeah.
There wasn't, I mean, like you could critique this or that, but in the main, everyone felt Christian church attendance is still up post-Cold War.
Yep.
And America also seems to be a sort of beacon compared to the atheism and sort of wild apostasies of Europe. And so we had a sort of comparative Christian glory, I think.
Right.
So all of which meant that Schindler's critique seemed, sort of Socratic or like Kierkegaard's clown, right, who comes on stage to tell everyone that the theater's burning down. And everyone laughs at him and says, well, that was great. What a great joke. And then they all die. I don't know if that's how the parable ends. Yeah. But in any case, I think that now might be the time to hear it, because I think, especially for younger people growing up and just looking around, someone saying, no, there's something wrong here, and that, surprise, surprise, conversion is necessary. Like conversion to Christ is not something achieved by our forefathers that we inherit unthinkingly. It is something that we need to do. It is something that we need to, once again, take up the cross, believe, convert, be saved.
And a really just phenomenal introduction by Reuben.
Oh
I mean, just bringing all of the themes out, making it extremely relevant to our current situation. And it's usually one of those books that's like the introduction is worth the price. It's kind of similar to like John Bett's introduction in for Shavara's Analogia Entis, which I always am like, I did not understand Shavara. I understood what Betts was saying in the introduction about Shavara. I'll keep reading. I'll keep trying. And I think Reuben takes all of the different concerns of the essays, things that are that Schindler didn't make as explicit in his essays, like America's underlying ontologic, and really brings out what Schindler thought about America positively, and where his critique comes from, the metaphysical foundation, and it brings it all together. And going through that introduction into the essays, then you're like well equipped to see the sparks flying. So
totally. Yeah, it's somewhat paradoxical, but I've never been happier to be an American than after reading Reuben's essay. So Reuben's introduction to a critique of America.
Yeah.
There's something about it that feels like being thrust into the real. It's like, okay, well, this is the mission, this is the time. And I think that's it's just edifying. It's an edifying feeling. It's been a good year, and it looks to be a good year.
We had 2 books come out this year.
We did.
Church Against the State.
Oh my gosh.
Andrew Willard Jones.
Is that this year?
This year. This was January this year. Right. I mean, what a big year.
That's huge.
Huge year. Church Against the State and on subsidiarity and sovereignty, which
just brought up and won the debate on sovereignty and integralism and all that.
100%.
Stuff. It's so clear that Christianity is a political form. It's not something like, I just think Andrew shows this again and again. And like, it is a political form. There's a political way, I would say, of being Christian, but that makes it sound too extrinsic. It's like, it prioritizes a ontological peace, and liberalism prioritizes a fundamental violence, and the two go very different directions in the kind of political orders that then become natural to those foundational premises. And so often as Christians, we get fooled because we're not investigating those foundations. So we are taking as Christians something that really has its foundation in fear of ultimately what will gets called ontological violence or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just glad Andrew's swinging that bat for
totally
the priority of the peace, which is I think a chapter of the
one of the central essays.
Yeah.
End of sovereignty, priority of peace, and kingdom of darkness make a kind of central. Just, I mean, there's no way to do this kind of like Christian sovereignty alliance anymore with those three essays. It's just like, you try to do it, I will throw this book at you.
Yeah, you got it. I know.
You know,
there's things like that. There's things that you have to deal with, and that this book is definitely one of them. You don't just get to write as if it didn't happen, which is great. And it's a great book. And then Battilione's book was this year, of course. That's been really cool. I think this was such a fun book to do, not just because the late Pope Francis, introduced it, and not just because Rocco Battiglione is a fantastic scholar in his own right, but I also think it has been great to investigate a missing category of our thinking, the peoples as the nations of the earth being saved by being incorporated into the church, is something that has been kind of distant to theological thought. It's become very individualized since liberalism. We know this.
Yes.
So the focus has been very much on my salvation, and then as a secondary step, incorporation into this thing we call nation, they can call people. What Battiglione did so brilliantly in this book is remind us that we are saved as nations. We are saved as peoples.
Yes.
We are incorporated into a people, and that this is the church's, the object of the church's evangelical call. Go forth and make disciples of all individuals. No, that's not what it said.
Yeah, of all nations. What's really it's so cool too to see that the church thinking together, that there in Latin America, this development of theology of the people occurred, and now has a real importance for us in America. It's not just each church doing its own thing, but actually the thought that grows out of the particular churches has a deep importance for other churches. It doesn't mean that theology of the peoples as in Latin America is exactly what it's going to be in North America, in our America. But there is deep lessons to be learned there. And as for the book, I mean, just brilliant. The central section, Plato, Nietzsche, and Our Lady of Guadalupe, is absolutely phenomenal. Taking these two kind of movements in philosophy towards the one and the abstracting of the people, setting a kind of ultimate transcendence, and then on the other, the Nietzschean total difference, and Our Lady of Guadalupe coming as one of the native peoples. And so both the enculturation of the gospel, that the gospel can come to a people in their circumstance and lift them differently in their difference. Yeah. It's just brilliant. A lot of thoughts there, I think, on the nature of paganism as well, and what is Christian mission? What is the Christian missionary activity to the peoples? How does it change in relation to the peoples? I thought that contribution was just fantastic, and also the last parts, and we got to interview Battiglione while he was here on the podcast. The last part on globalization, and that in Catholic social teaching, since basically Pacem Terris from John the 23rd, globalization has been a pretty central theme. Populorum Progressio deals with globalization, Solicitudo Rei Socialis and Centesimus Annus from John Paul, and then Caritas and Veritate, obviously from Benedict XVI, are all dealing with this reality of an interconnected global world. And Buttiglione takes that theme up and attaches it to that Christian missionary enculturation of the peoples, and brings that all together in what we could say is like, how can Christianity go to the ends of the earth in a globalized world? What does that look like? And yeah, just brilliant.
Good. A very good year.
And we also did the book launch, I should mention, for Modernity's Alternative in DC.
Yeah, that's right. And the Apostolic Nuncio was there.
Mm-hmm.
Said some very kind things about the book. Yeah, you guys were great. I didn't go.
I wasn't there either.
You weren't there. Who was? Oh, right. It was Ruben and Mike.
It was Ruben and Mike.
Good.
Excellent. But yeah, the nuncio, Christophe Pierre, he gave an address as well,
Yes.
which is online. So yeah, that was fantastic.
We found out this year that the number one musical artist of our podcast listeners is Taylor Swift. You know?
Yeah, we need people to explain.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No. I mean, we need them to explain why Taylor Swift is their number one.
Yeah. Because Spotify has this thing where it tells you a bunch of stats about your listeners.
Yeah.
Spotify Wrapped. And that's what we found out about you. Swifties.
Number 2 was Bach. So it goes Taylor Swift, Bach, and then Catholic Lo-Fi is number 3.
All right.
So.
I'm pleased with this. This is good. You know what I think? I think that the reason the new Polity man has that particular playlist is that he's a man of the people. You know, like you don't want your listeners who are listening to New Polity to have as their number one artist the Catholic Lo-Fi thing, right? Because then okay, maybe you've got a marketing niche, right? People who do this sort of thing, but do you have the people? You know, Taylor Swift is the number one streamed and listened to artist, for better or worse. She is the sound of our people and of the nations of the earth. So it's just good to know that we're tracking. I've always thought of us as being, you know, for the people, for the common man.
Yeah.
And you've just proven it by your listening habits. Now the second being Bach does throw that theory off a little, I'll admit. It seems like there must be I don't know what the Taylor Swift Bach, I don't know how that Venn diagram, doesn't seem likely that it's a typical combination. So I guess all of you guys get to still revel in your
it's a little schizophrenic, you know? You go from the Goldberg variations to Dead Poet or whatever. I don't listen to Taylor Swift.
Dead Poet Society.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I don't know what her newest album is.
That's a movie. Dead Poet Society is a movie.
It's Dead Poet something, though. Okay, I'm not going to embarrass myself.
No. But we learned a lot about the new Polity man, as I've mentioned before, just through this particular year has been a really good one because I finally got off my butt and started fundraising, which is something that we have to do because we don't make enough money. Selling magazines, selling books, selling conference tickets gets us along a long part of the way. But we want to produce what we produce. We want to make it wonderful. We can't do it without people supporting us beyond even their kind and generous subscriptions and attention. So if you're out there, if it's Christmas, if you've got a business that you're about to pay $1 million in taxes to the federal government and you're looking for somewhere else to put it, we're here doing good work and wielding a 501c3 status like a siren, calling your money towards us. Now, people have been really generous. Yeah, I've been so shocked that very poor people. You talk about the widow's mite. I'm talking about like actual widows who have a mite. I'm not being metaphorical. I mean those have been some of the calls I've made, and people, and like people who've said things like, "I literally have no money to give you, but if you call me in October 2027, I think I will." Like, so I'm like, okay, put a date on the calendar for 2 years later. So that kind of support it's just been so meaningful in the sense that I know we're all walking together, and we're all being nourished by the church in some way, and I know we're striving to be a conduit for that in all of your lives, and so just the show of support for it is also an acknowledgement of just that something good is happening here, not just with what we're making, but with the whole movement. So, thank you. You're very kind. Merry Christmas. Yeah. Well, good year.
Good year.
Busy year. I feel like next year looks to be even better. Stick around with us, folks. There's going to be a whole number of new podcast series revisiting a lot of the themes that brought you to New Polity in the first place. Some just wonderful writing coming out, and brand new conference. I'd be remiss not to mention our masterclass, 4-day intellectual retreat, diving deep into Catholic social teaching with a real emphasis on its practical application within your life, within the particularities of your local reality, like with the mission that's been given to you. That's going to be wonderful. It's a partnership there with Catholic Answers. We're doing it in Steubenville in June.
June, yeah.
That's right.
It's like late June,
yeah.
I think.
We'll put a link to it in the bottom here.
Yeah, next year, I think, Catholic social teaching, we're going to have the fruits of all the, the thinking and writing on it. I think it's going, I have so many thoughts on, like the state of Catholic social teaching in America. I've been personally writing on that as well. Just so many people don't know it, and it is partially a problem of form of the encyclicals themselves. It's difficult to unpack for a wider audience. And so it leans heavily on commentators, and commentators often kind of take their spin as the one thing. The media gives their spin of the one thing. So what we're really trying to do is show forth all those principles, and then give you an ability to go look at the encyclicals to make Catholic social teaching not something you would like to eventually study, but something you can feel as though, yes, I both have a grasp of it and can live it, see it in the world, advocate for the principles of the church on social justice.
Yeah, that's going to really be the flavor of, I would imagine, the flavor of 2026 is the church's social teaching. It'd be marvelous. All right, listen, thank you for your support. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't, please do newpolity.com/magazine. Thank you for listening. Please spread the word. One other thing to leave you with is that this year has also been the most successful year in just gaining an audience that we've had since the beginning. So I think we added 400, did you say? 400 subscribers to the magazine, which we have never added that many in one year, except for, I think, our first year, like when we began to exist at all. And that has also tracked across all the various platforms we're on, from Spotify, YouTube, and book sales, like however you look at it. It has been a year of just immense growth in audience. So I don't know if you're sharing it with your cousins. I don't know if it's just that you guys have 12 kids and so you're subscribing them.
Yep.
I don't know the method, demographic or evangelical, but however you're doing it, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we're just excited to be on the journey with you here. So, Alex, thanks for the year.
Thanks as well.
Merry Christmas, everyone. We will see you next time.